controversial influencer Andrew Tate has arrived in the US yesterday alongside his brother Tristan after being allowed to leave Romania. Now, remember, they both face charges of human trafficking, with Andrew also accused of rape. They, of course, deny the charges.
Now, they have gained millions of fans online, promoting an ultra-masculine lifestyle that critics say demeans women. Many have raised concerns about the impact of Andrew Tate's views and how they have that impact on boys and young men, with teachers even reporting that his violent rhetoric has made its way into classrooms. Right. So, why do so many boys and young men relate to Andrew Tate? Well, we're joined by documentary maker Freddie Feltham, who says he appeals to pessimistic young men who are made to believe that he is their only hope, and Dr. Sophie King-Hill, a social policy expert, who says we have let boys down and created a vacuum which has been filled by Andrew Tate. So, should we come to you, first of all, Dr. Sophie? What is the vacuum that we, society, have created that is being filled by attraction to people like Andrew Tate?
So I think, first of all, we've got to remember that we constantly look at young men and boys and broad brush blame them, but actually, as a society, we've got to have a look at what we've done. So that's the first step in recognising.
So when we talk about toxic male culture, we talk about it in a very general way, and individual young men feel that very personally. They
do. And if we think about the last 50 years, largely women and girls have been supported in the evolution of their role. We've got bodily autonomy, we've got through contraception and abortion. We're part of the labour market, and we've been supported in the evolution of that role. We don't need a man in the traditional sense anymore. There's still a long way to go, so I want to caveat that. However, with young men and boys, the evolution of that role has not been supported, and we've largely neglected them. And this has caused this vacuum in which somebody like Tate has got traction. So I think Andrew Tate is a problem person, but he's the symptom, not the cause.
Well, is he really? I mean, you can look at it another way, can't you? Go, well, in a way, the reason why boys and men are sidelined and are given a hard time is because of the comments that people like he make. I mean, to turn around and say that men own women, I mean, it's like, it's beyond anything that we would even allow in any world. I mean, we call those comments medieval. I mean, he said in the past that women are not as intelligent as men. And let's not get into some of the things he's talked about the physical treatment of women. I mean, it's pretty hideous stuff. Freddie, you've filmed 3 documentaries on this. What I find extraordinary is that he's getting away with it, quite frankly.
Well, look, I think anyone who's been following this case should be incredibly alarmed by what we've just seen, right? Not just on a political level, right? You've got what we've heard in the Financial Times last week, that essentially members of the Trump administration were pressuring the Romanian authorities for him to be released. Now, he's still going to face that criminal case in Romania next month. But what is going on? You know, how do we get into a world where the US are pressuring another democracy to interrupt, essentially, their judicial process? There was a reason why he wasn't doing that.
That was raised, actually, wasn't it, in the press conference in Washington yesterday with Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said he didn't know anything about it.
And I think that's plausible.
Well, that could be plausible, but it's interesting. What you're saying is that on a political level, it's out there. But coming to the individual young men as well, which I guess is what we're focusing on here, isn't it? What is it that is not there for men? What is it that they're confused about, let's phrase it like that leads them to think, he's talking my language?
Well, it's like Sophie said, right? Young men feel a bit priced out of this conversation, and they have done for the past 5 years, I think. I think we shouldn't be shaming young people, anyone, let alone young men. And I think a lot of them do feel a sense of shame around these conversations, around relationships, around the way in which the world accommodates them. We've had a focus, which is, by the way, well-placed.
Some people would argue that shame is an effective way of holding a mirror up to behaviour that is unacceptable. And without that, how is progress made?
I think shame and guilt are good insofar as confronting for yourself what problems you have and to take action. But there reaches a certain point where those things aren't helpful.
I think one of the issues there with shaming people, it shuts down really vital dialogue that we need. We need to create safe spaces to talk to young men and boys where they don't stick to a social script. We want to hear the truth, but sometimes it's very difficult to hear.
It's interesting that, just as Andrew, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. As a mother of a son, I feel very much that it's challenging how to raise that son, because they will say things. I like to believe and hope I can be confident that he's not a follower of Andrew Tate. I'm pretty sure he isn't. But comments are made generally on social media, in the playground, on TikTok, which they then repeat and are attacked for, probably quite rightly, nothing on the scale of this. And then you find, well, gosh, they're just trying to feel their way as well. So I sort of know what you mean. But what is the answer? Because we can't, as a society, approve of it, can we?
No, but we've got to have conversations about what positive anything is, right? We're talking about positive masculinity right now. This is a big term. We don't know what it looks like yet, but we should be having a conversation about that. And the conversation starts by asking young men, looking them in the eye and saying, what are you worried about? You know,
But look, Sophie, the point is, you know, these are extreme views, and in any other form of extremism, we look at the effect on society. Now, we know that sexual attack, sexually abusive treatment of women is out of control in a Western society. So you then have to look, where are these young men or these being radicalised? And that's effectively what he's doing. He's radicalising and grooming men. I mean, you know, when he talks about women being owned, the worry is that did a young boy who started listening to his podcast not have that view to begin with, and then comes away going, yeah, he's right. Andrew Tate said it. And when they get in an argument with women in the future or their own parents or friends, oh, no, Andrew Tate said this, and Andrew Tate's got 100 million followers, so I'm going to believe him.
I think it's really tricky, and I think it's really important to unpick these things very gently and gradually, because the worst thing you can do is say to a boy, you should not be listening to Andrew Tate. Why are you doing that? Because it shuts down this dialogue. Young men and boys are constantly told they're part of the problem, but they are not allowed to be part of the solution.
Okay. Very interesting, very interesting. I'm sure you at home have got lots of views on this. Do feel free to share them with us, because it's an interesting one that isn't going to go away. We should restate the Tate brothers have denied all the charges against them, the specific criminal charges.
Yeah, and we will be speaking to Wes Streeting, the Minister, later. We'll put some of this to him as well and just see what the UK government are going to do now that they are in the US.